And we're gonna make ourselves a pretty little apron today, and I'm just measuring the fabric straight. And this is why having this Quilters pad on my table is great. I'm just following the line, and we're going to cut that nice and straight. So my apron is going to be gathered on the waist, so I am cutting the entire length of my fabric, and I'm making it 16 inches from top to bottom. And I'm going to use these Quilters clips to keep it straight while I clean up the other edge. So we're going to gather it, and we are going to the sewing machine. This is the way I gather my pieces. So I'm going to start with a straight stitch, and I'm going to bring it as wide as it could go. And I'm going to go in about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to follow the foot of my machine and sew that all the way down. Now, at the beginning and at the end, we are not going to do a back stitch, and we are going to leave a pretty long tail because we are going to use that, you'll see. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to, again, to make another seam the same way, and I'm going to move over 1/4 of an inch, okay? So again, I'm going to follow the foot of the machine. I'm going to use it as a guideline, and I'm going to go right next to the seam we did before. The main thing is that you do not want these two seams to cross over. And remember not to backstitch. Once we pull that out, make sure you have a very long tail again. So what you can, now you have two seams, right? And you see how the fabric is starting to gather a little bit already. So I am going to pick one side, and for me is going to be the top. And I'm going to pick the two top threads, and I'm going to make a knot as close as possible to my fabric. And be careful not to rip your thread. Now I'm going to walk myself the other side and do the same thing. And once you have done that, then we can start gathering our fabric. And we are slowly going to pull on the thread. Make sure you don't pull too hard, and help the fabric go along. At this point, what I like to do is I like to switch one side and the other side, and just slowly pull my fabric and bring the material to as much or as little gather as you want. I wanted the front of my apron to be 18 inches. Honestly, I wished I went a little smaller, but it's okay. So you could go 16 inches rather than 18. Okay, I'm making sure that my gather is even, measuring my 18 inches. Now I'm going to use a pretty different fabric, a polka dot. And I'm sorry the video cut off, but I cut it at 4 inches. I made 1/4 of an inch hem, folding it in twice. And now I'm going to do the same gather stitch that we did before. However, because it's much shorter and smaller piece of material, I'm only going to do one line of stitching. And I'm going to pull it in, again, as much or as little gathering as you prefer. And slowly, and you see how I go a little bit on the left side, a little bit on the right side, until I am happy. To go around, this is going to be a cute little border around my apron. I ended up needing 4 pieces. Now we're going to put the two right sides together, and I'm going to again use my pretty clips to hold it together. And when you get to the end of your first strip, what you're going to do is you're going to get another strip that you already hemmed. And on the corner, I just round it basically. So I put the corner up and make sure I go around. When you have to join the two fabrics, I just take the second piece, join right side to right side, and sew it together. And I like to open the fabric of my seams, and then it's going to be pressed even better. And continue to bring your ruffles all the way around. This is not necessary step. I just like this cute little edge, this polka dot. I have an event, and the event is all about going a splash to the back, to something. And I chose the 50s, so I needed to have a cute little apron so that I could have my little ice cream shop. And if you want to, you should come and check out my Facebook page, because we do lots of amazing things. So once you have your pretty border all around, then we're going to go ahead and stitch it. And I'm going nice and slow, taking my time. And if I feel that it's too gathered or not gathered enough, this is when you would adjust your material. And you guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel so we can bring you more amazing DIY tutorials. And we get all the way to the end. So now my apron has a cute little front. And what I'm doing now is I am going over the stitches that we used to gather, okay? Because that was a very loose stitch, and I want my gather to stay. So I just went over it once with my machine. So you're starting to see what it looks like. So pretty. So now we're going to make, of course, the waist, which is going to also allow us to tie it in the back. And what I did is I had a 5-inch piece. I fold in on both sides, pressed down with my iron, and folded back in. Before we went on the sewing machine, I folded in the edges so that we have a clean hem right there, because that's going to be where we tie it. Now for this part, I started from the center of my apron and the center of my belt, basically. And I wanted to sew it first on the front side of my apron, because that's where I want the clean seam, and that's where I want to make sure we are hiding the seams of our gather stitch. So what I did at first, I made sure that I pinned it all nice. And then once we went on the sewing machine, always, double check, double measure, make sure that once we go and sew it together, the two, basically we made a bias tape, right? But I want to make sure that my seams do match up. So here I am going to start from the right side, and I am using a black thread to camouflage a little bit. And I'm going to sew the middle part first. Once that's done, so we're sewing over the gather stitch, making sure that my belt is nice and straight. Now I'm going to start from the beginning. I went in about 1/4 of an inch, so I used my foot as my guide. And I sewed my belt in, and I went over the original middle section seam that we already did, but made sure I went right over the same black. seam that we did before and finish off my belt. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to put my link below. All my materials and supplies are from JoAnn's. Hope to see you guys soon.